This video is for educational purposes only. Fair use. Copyright disclaimer. Under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976, allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use.
Hi out there. You are looking at a little village on the shores of the Rappahannock River on the northern neck of Virginia, USA. It's where I call home. This is a tale about a mermaid that has been sitting in my front yard since 2013. Her name is Friendship. She and I have a history that goes back to the 1950s. This old commercial building is where I stay with my cat friends. Yoda, Prissy, and Babes. I feel blessed to live on the shores of the Rappahannock and look out on the river at any time. To me, she is a living, breathing spirit. Like the human spirit, some days she's calm and peaceful, and other days wild and temperamental, always changing. By the way, my name is Chance E. Foster. The E stands for Emerson, my middle name. My father always used to call me Chancey. Whenever the opportunity presents itself, I like to get out on the river and windsurf, something I have been doing for the past 35 years or so. It's a good way to learn the ways of the river, always seeking that elusive harmony with her. I have always loved the sea, and maybe that's why I've always felt a personal attraction to Friendship, the Sea Maiden. The story of how Friendship ended up in my front yard begins back in the 1950s, when my parents, Delbert and Lenore Foster, started a private school in McLean Gardens in northwest Washington, D.C. They called the school McLean School. McLean Gardens was a 43-acre garden community consisting of 31 red brick buildings located on land that was once the estate of John Rolfe McLean. He named it Friendship. The school had classrooms in a building that was adjacent to a traffic circle that featured various statues, including several statues of mermaids. In the same building was housed a Marriott's Hot Shops cafeteria. Now, I'm not sure who owned what or the exact dates, but when the cafeteria moved out of McLean Gardens back around the 1970s, the Marriotts gave my parents one of the mermaids. That's where it stayed until my mother decided to downsize and sold the property back in 2013. The new owners had no interest in Friendship, so she told me I could have it if I could move it. I had a friend doing tree removal work on the newly sold property, and he was able to borrow a big crane to move the statue to my place, where she has been standing in the exact same location where she was dropped off ever since. There, Friendship sat neglected for a number of years. My mother had given me some leftover blue paint that she had been using over the years to spruce her up with. I was planning on slapping some of that on her, but I never seemed to have the time for her, with more pressing projects around the building needing to be done. I did appreciate having her around though, because she always gave me a positive vibe. Plus, mermaids are well known for bringing good luck and protecting against spiritual harm, much like the legend of Syringa, a famous mermaid of Warsaw. It wasn't until I took a trip out west to Denver, Colorado for the 2018 Flat Earth Conference that I started awakening to the possibility that there might be more to Friendship than I had ever imagined. On the way out to Denver, I decided to make a quick stop to Independence, Iowa. That's where my parents were born and raised, and where I spent many summers with my grandparents. Upon arrival, I took a little walk around downtown, and there was something about the buildings that struck me as odd. In my memory, they were nothing special, but now I could see they were exceptionally well built. They would not look out of place in DC's Georgetown, but kinda odd for a small Midwest farming town. I stopped by the church where my grandparents and I attended Mass every Sunday, and it looked a lot more ornate than I remember. I was impressed by the intricate brickwork, the symbolic stained glass windows, and the overall high quality of craftsmanship. Whoever was involved in the construction of this church were supremely skilled brick masons and expert stained glass artisans. There does not appear to be a record of who those people were though. I would have loved to have stuck around and investigated the town further, but I had to be in Denver the next day, about 800 miles down the road.
We are the Globebusters, and we do our shows every Sunday at noon Pacific. And what we are about is we try to...
You've known any flat earther that follows the model of Cosmas Indicoplastes, or perhaps, maybe more likely for a yes answer, do you know any Orthodox Christians who are flat earthers? Thank you so much. I'll be the flat earth man for that.
Having an open mind is important to me, and the Flat Earth Conference gave me a lot to think about on the long, beautiful drive down to Camp Verde, Arizona, to visit my sister, nephews, and niece for Thanksgiving. On a day trip to nearby Jerome, I couldn't help but notice the similar red brick architecture that looked very much like the red brick buildings in downtown Independence, Iowa. While in Arizona, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to make the journey down a long, dusty, rocky road to beautiful Sycamore Canyon. It was here where we used to go skinny dipping and experience the effects of various hallucinogenics back around 1975. After a fantastic Thanksgiving dinner with my sister and her kids and grandchildren, it was time to hit the road for the long trip back to my home in good old Virginia. I was grateful to see my cats again, and they were happy to see me. And the next day, I began to think more and more about that statue of a mermaid sitting in my front yard. I had never thought too much about friendship in the past, but after my revealing trip out west, I began feeling like this reality that we live in is a whole lot more fascinating than what most people realize. Questions about the mermaid statue that had been sitting in my front yard unnoticed for so long began to arouse my curiosity. The first thing I wanted to know, what material was she made of? I was under the impression that she was made of cast concrete, but when I began to work on her and started scraping off the old paint, it became obvious that she was composed of some sort of metal. Since she attracted a magnet and therefore had a magnetic field, I started thinking she was made of cast iron. But after giving the old girl a good scraping and cleaning, there was no evidence of rust to be found, so it wasn't likely she was made of cast iron. It also became apparent that she was painted gold originally. It was at this point that I decided to paint over the original paint with the idea of preserving it for future investigation. As the events began to unfold, it was beginning to look like the old girl might be something special after all. It was also dawning on me that it might have been my destiny all along to be the one to tell the story of friendship with Maiden. Really, in my heart, it felt like a moral obligation.